Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of the Killamarsh Murders. We are headed to Killamarsh in Derbyshire in the UK, and this case is one of many failings. It is truly tragic. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! I'm drier than the Sahara Desert. I'm so thirsty today. I don't think I've got enough fluids with me. Parched. Anyhow, yes, I can remember so vividly when this case happened. It was in the newspapers, it was everywhere. It was really sad. Excuse me, my voice is a bit funny today. Not sure why. Hopefully not coming down with something. It's such a sad, tragic case. And I didn't cover it at the time because I wanted everything to play out, and the perpetrator hadn't even gone into trial. That, you know, I was following the case as it was unfolding like everybody else. It was everywhere, all over the news. It was a big story. Something has then happened in this case earlier in the year, so I'm going to come round to that obviously, but it reminded me that it was on my list of cases to cover. Imagine this is my voice from now on. I can hear it. It seems lower and a bit croakier. What the deuce? We're going to September 2021. It's a newer case, and Killamarsh, Derbyshire, UK. This was the home, quite recent home of Terry Harris. She was 35 years old. She had moved to Killamarsh from Sheffield just 3 months prior. She moved into her new home on Chandos Crescent in Killamarsh with her 2 children, John Paul, who was 13, her daughter Lacey, who was 11, and her boyfriend Damien Bendel. He was 31. Terry herself was 35. Sorry if I've already said that. Damien was not the father to John Paul and Lacey. Their father was Jason, and their parents had split up. I think they were divorced actually. She'd been married and now divorced with Jason. And they had an amicable relationship, and he was a very involved dad, so he would text his kids every single day. He had communication with them, and they had custody, you know, so he saw his kids frequently. At the time, Terry was also pregnant with her new boyfriend's baby, so Damien's baby. Now, a lot happened in a small space of time, and this is, you know, one of the first red flags. Terry met Damien in April of 2020. That, I believe, was lockdown year, wasn't it? Joy. So they met then online, April 2020. And then within 18 months, Damien had moved from Swindon, where he lived, to Sheffield to live with Terry and her children. And they were having a baby together. So that's an awful lot in a short space of time. The short space of time is also highlighted even further because of Damien's past. And Terry, I don't know how much of Damien's past she was aware of, but she was aware of arguably enough. And by that, I mean enough to be cautious and take more time. I want to be really careful here because I don't want to be victim blaming of her, but there were definitely some red flags that she was overlooking. And we can have a bit more understanding about why she might have overlooked these things in a bit, because I'm going to read some stuff out that I found really interesting. However, at the time, Damien was wearing an electronic tag and had recently been released from prison. I'm just going to read out his criminal history up to this point, 2020. And there's more after, obviously, but I will read out to that point. So, in January 2004, Bendel was reprimanded for criminal damage of throwing an egg at a woman's house. He was at 13. So this is the beginning. In 2010, he receives a caution for possession of cocaine. 2011, first prison sentence, jailed for 3 years for violent robbery of a lone man. So we're upping the ante. 2012, he's released on home curfew to his mother's house. 2015, he offends again, jailed for a further 3 years after attempted knife-point robbery of a newsagent. 2016, Bendel commits grievous bodily harm and 2 counts of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, against prison officers after being denied a prison transfer. What? I thought he was let out. Oh no, he'd gone into prison. Excuse me. Right, so he's been a naughty chap in prison. So he's harmed 2 police officers. So that would suggest a violent fit of rage. So there's a lot of violence going on. He's a violent offender. Again, 2016, so May, prison officer records that Bendel's ex-partner has contacted the prison and disclosed domestic abuse in the relationship. Let's note that. 2016. July 2016, the same ex-partner asks for information on how to obtain a restraining order. Later on that month, the same ex-partner speaks to a probation officer to say that she's upset and not enough has been done to protect her, and she asks to speak to a manager. It's already getting frustrating, isn't it? In December, he's released on licence to an approved premises. The following day, he is recalled to prison for failing to go to that approved premises. In 2017, in January, he is sentenced to 30 months in prison for the attacks that he committed on the police officers in prison. In 2018, he is released on licence again to an approved premises. A month later, he is recalled to prison due to poor behaviour at his approved premises, including going out all night, not going home, drinking, missing curfew. 2019, he's refused release on parole because he refuses to engage in the parole process. In August of 2019, Bendel is released from prison at the end of his sentence. And it's saying no probation supervision was possible. That blows my mind. Wow. A very underfunded, but still, this is somebody that's been in and out of prison with violent offences and domestic violence. She hasn't pressed charges. It doesn't say she pressed charges. She wanted to be protected. This makes me cross. In March 2020, Wiltshire's Police Child Sexual Exploitation Team contact probation to confirm Bendel's last known address and say they held evidence of sexual risk of harm to girls. That was in March of 2020. Probation were contacted with that information. He meets online with Terry in April of 2020, and the following month, in May, he commits arson in Swindon while using cannabis and alcohol. The vein. A member in June 2021, a member of the probation service team describes a curfew requirement in order for Bendel to live with Miss Harris and her children as suitable. I'm going to come back to the offending, but as of June 2021, Bendel was handed a 17-month suspended sentence with 175 hours of unpaid work, 20 rehabilitation activity requirement days, and a 6-month alcohol treatment requirement, and a 5-month curfew requirement. So that was put in place once he had begun his relationship with Terry. But some important pieces of the puzzle were not all put together at this point, which was just such a huge failing. Anyhow, there are other things in Bendel's past that are worrying, and I don't know how much of the previous, everything I read out, I don't know what Terry was aware of, but she must have been aware of the arson because that was what happened after she had met him, and then the suspended sentence and all of that was while she was in a relationship with him. But whether or not she knew about things before that, I'm thinking that she did know some things because he was one to brag. He bragged about his time in prison, and he wanted everyone to know that he was intense and he was intimidating to people. The local people, when he moved to Killamarsh, the neighbours would say that he was he would walk around like he owned the place, and he would have this look. He would like look through you, like stare through you. I don't know if you can tell what I mean by that, but I've encountered people like that where it's so intimidating. It's like, what? And they just look through you, and it's aggressive. It's really intimidating. And he would do that. That's how he was in his local community. So he wasn't trying to make friends. He wanted people to be scared of him. He wanted people to know that he'd been in prison and that he was hard. He was hard. That was that was how he was portraying himself. So I think that Terry probably, if everyone else knew that he'd been in prison before this, I'm sure she did. He was a drug addict. So his drugs of choice were cocaine and cannabis, but he would also take meth and morphine. He used to be a bodybuilder. He used to be a cage fighter, and he was also jobless. So he sounded like a real catch. People described him as a wannabe gangster. And as you can imagine, Terry's family, friends, even people in her local community, even her neighbours, they were worried about her. They weren't happy about this. And I think from the outside, people could not see what she was seeing. They couldn't see the attraction. And her mother especially was super unhappy about it, really worried. Bendel even had a conversation with her mother and said, "I'm a changed man." Mate, so many chances. I do believe in giving people more chances, second chances, and in reform. 100%. That definitely happens. There are people that have done terrible things or have had really awful starts in life. I've spoken about this before. It's not everybody that has a rough childhood or a hard start in life or traumatic events or difficult circumstances that does, go down this path of crime. Not always, and some do, and then they go down that path and they come back off of that path. It happens an awful lot. So it's not to judge, people that have made mistakes and say that nobody can ever change. But this behaviour, it was not showing reform. He was proud of his time in prison, and he wanted people to be scared and intimidated, and he wasn't learning, he wasn't trying to grow and better himself. He didn't get a job. He carried on taking drugs. He continuously pushed the boundaries. He didn't even see the boundaries. He was like, I'm going to do what I want, and he didn't care for the consequences, basically. His behaviour was that he would do wrong and go to prison for a bit and then come out, and then he would do wrong and then he'd go to prison for a bit. But not just do wrong, really violent crimes and domestic violence. So he's not showing any moral judgment in his past. Needless to say, Terry's mum was not happy with their relationship. And when it was said that he spoke to her and said he was a changed man, something that is really common in these situations, these men, is that they are incredibly, normally charming and have the gift of the gab. They ensnare. And usually that is done by exploiting the woman's desire and need for love. So these relationships normally start heavily, normally really quick. Everything moves quickly. Love you, you're the queen of my world. Sucks somebody in. It's called love bombing. And that's really intense, and it makes that person feel so desired and so loved. I was reading about this because I'm interested in how these relationships begin. And it's so easy. People often are, she should have known better. But I'm interested because nobody would just, be like, I'm just going to put my family through hell. At that beginning point, you would, if you knew, you'd walk away. So it's this love bombing. It's so intense, and actually what it can do is switch off your brain. You don't have a minute to think, so you don't have critical thinking. So that's why most of the red flags go unnoticed, and if they are picked up, the perpetrator will you know, that, like I said, they're charming, they'll sweep you off your feet, they'll probably love bomb you even harder, they'll be so nice, and they'll be like, I'm a changed man, you have brought out the best in me, I'm so in love with you, look at how you've changed me. You know, it's really sick actually how it plays out. Often these relationships move really fast, like I said, so there's no time, and everyone around you as well might be like, this, this is too quick, you're moving too fast, and there is an element of shame. So when things start to deteriorate, it can be really common for women to feel ashamed and not want to, they want to prove people wrong. No, this can't be. He's so nice, he's so lovely. And they will continuously try to get back to the love bombing stage of the relationship. And again, that means that they miss lots and lots of red flags. Marriage is often quick because that's what they want. They want to keep you to themselves, isolate you from family members. That happens quite early on too. Babies, children, and we can see this all in this relationship with Terry and Bendel. They're having a baby very quickly. Other people around you or ex-partners might come forward and say to you that this person is awful, they beat them, they, come forward with evidence even. And this usually, again, it goes, because you're in such a heightened and loved up state, it can go under the radar. It can be disbelieved because this person will say, but you've changed me, look at what you've done. And it feeds into that as well. I wanted to just go over that because Terry was smitten. That's how people described it. She was smitten with Bendel. And it seems so impossible when you hear all of the things that he has done, which granted she might not know all of it. She might only know about the arson, I don't know. But when you hear of this person and how he's described by his neighbours and how scary, and it doesn't match up, does it? Because Terry was a devoted mum. She was a loving mother. She would do anything for the kids. She'd had a marriage of 14 years with Jason and had this happy, normal life. So it just doesn't match. And then I think that's why I wanted to read about these relationships and how they normally start, because it just sounds like this whirlwind and this sweeping off of the feet. It's so intoxicating in those moments, and she would have really felt lonely and wanted to be loved. Her relationship with Jason had ended, so it made more sense to me when I read about that. But things weren't rosy. So even though she was seen to be smitten, she was also seen to be terrified. People in the local neighbourhood said she had fear in her eyes. She was scared, and his behaviour, as is often the case in these relationships, the love bombing, there's only so long it can last before it just dwindles out. These are not nice people. It's fake. It's BS. They can't keep it up for long. So they keep it up long enough, and isn't it weird how it's like so common? This is it's like they all read a script, like how to become, I don't know, how to snare and ensnare people in their trap. It's awful. But anyhow, this is what had happened, and she was scared. She knew from what I've read and people saying that she had the fear in her eyes, and the way that their relationship was deteriorating. He was spending her money. He was taking her money for drugs. He was taking a lot of drugs as well. So this isn't a happy household. And I'm imagining that she felt quite trapped. And that's the whole idea, because she's now pregnant with his baby. He's moved himself in. He's spending her money. He's becoming violent. She's scared of him. And that's, ensnared. She's caught. And it does break my heart, because both of her children, this would not be something that they were used to, and they were living in that house with him there, other than when they went to be with their dad, which must have been a sweet relief. On Saturday the 18th of September 2021, Lacey, 11-year-old Lacey, had a friend sleep over. She'd slept over the night before, so the Friday night, the 17th, and on the Saturday they were out. They're so sweet. They had a stall for cancer research. They were raising money for cancer research, and they were so excited about this. And they were, Lacey was said to be quite She was more extrovert, and so she was really, you know, running a stall and stuff like that would have been right up her street, and lovely and kind to be doing that for cancer research as well. So the girls were doing this, and John Paul, I believe, was at home. That evening, on the Saturday, the girls came home. They had to be home at 8 o'clock, which they were, and I guess this was probably normal behaviour, but Bendel was there at home, and he was just trying to get drugs. He was trying to get cocaine from his dealer after he had spent all day getting high. What a waste of space. Like, what an actual waste of space. The following morning, the 19th, Bendel has called his mother. He's called her and told her that he has harmed himself. He's stabbed himself. So worried about his well-being, his mother calls the police at 7:26 a.m. to let them know. Can they go and do a welfare check on her son? At 7:38 a.m, using Connie's mobile phone, so Connie is Lacey's friend who has slept over. He's using her phone. He calls the police, 7:38, and he tells them that they need to come because he has just killed 4 people. It's really chilling when you listen to him speak. Most of the things that I've seen and heard of him, he is so calm. There isn't remorse or worry, fear, anything. There's nothing in his voice. It is cold. It's cold. It's really, it is chilling. This guy is one of the scariest types of people, I think. We've covered cases before, haven't we, where that one comes to mind and I've forgotten his name, but there's no fear of consequence. There's no sort of like, there's no limit, and that is terrifying, because they will do and they will go to the darkest places and they do not care, and nothing will stop them. When the police arrive, they send 2 police, which I find that a bit mental, because he's just said that he's killed 4 people. They send 2 police officers, love them, but again, he's super calm. He is so calm. They approach him, he asks for a cigarette, they talk to him, like they're just chatting away outside the house, outside Terry's house, and he takes his coat off. He sort of shows these stab wounds. He's just like, it's any other day. He's like, oh yeah, stabbed myself. It's bizarre. It is really odd. Mind you, he has spent the whole day before smoking, getting high, and then will go on to, he's taken more drugs in the night. So he's you know, but he's eerily calm. He's under the influence is what I meant. When he shows him the stab wounds, he makes a comment and says, I won't go back to prison. But, you know, I think if he truly meant that, then these stab wounds, they were quite superficial. I think, you know, if you really didn't want to go back, you would have done a better job with that. What do I know? Anyhow, he's handcuffed, because he then goes on to say again, I've killed 4 people. They're inside. 1 police officer stays with him while he's handcuffed, and the other officer, and I feel so much for this officer and everyone else that would have been at that scene and gone in, but this officer walking in to see what he saw, because he had indeed killed the 4 people that were in that house. He found Terry, John Paul, Connie and Lacey all bludgeoned to death. They had all been hit around the head multiple times, and it was a horrific sight, with a claw hammer. There was a lot of blood. It was a really bloody scene. He still had blood on his hands. When he was outside, he still had blood on his hands. There was blood splattered up the walls. There was pools of blood on the floor around the victims. Also, Terry was pregnant, so her baby had died as well. He was arrested. He was taken in, and some of the things that he said in his interview were just, again, he was under the influence, but he said the whole house is covered in claret, and it just, he was so cold about it. It did not seem like there was an ounce of care or thought or anything that he had just murdered. 3 of the victims were children, and it just seemed like he just didn't care. He was nonchalant even. He was like, oh, I bet you don't get this every day, sort of thing. Bet you don't get this every day. Like he'd done them a favour. Like, oh, wow, look, you've got some work to do now. It just was, he was just, oh, I don't even know. There are no words. I feel speechless, actually, about him. He claimed, of course, right, that later on that evening he had taken 3 to 4 bags of cocaine. So he was high in the day. Got distracted, sorry. He was high in the daytime, and then he had taken 3 or 4 bags of cocaine. And he claimed that he didn't remember a thing. I blacked out. I don't know, I must have done it. Blacked out though, don't know. Can't remember. It was determined that the murders took place between 9:42 and 10 p.m. Neighbours heard screaming and shouting. No one called the police. Terry's body was found in her bedroom. Lacey had been murdered in the living room downstairs. Connie's body was found in another bedroom, and John Paul's body was found in the bathroom. It must have been terrifying. So at that time of night, John Paul's 13, the girls are 11. They don't want to sleep over though. So were they asleep? Were they in their rooms probably? Sounds like they were upstairs. Lacey likely had run away and that's why she was downstairs, but it must have been so terrifying. And I'm guessing that now this is a guess, but that Terry was murdered first. They were in the bedroom and she was murdered. There were 9, I think it was 9 blows to her head and her face. And her skull was just, there was exposed brain matter in all of the victims. He had smashed their skulls. So Terry was found in her bedroom, and I can only imagine that while that was going on and she would have been screaming, there would have been a lot of noise, there would have been thuds, and the children would have been terrified because it would have woken them up, I'm assuming. And I believe the fact that John Paul was found in the bathroom means that at some point all of the kids they would have been terrified. I think Lacey was the last child to be murdered, and I think it was Terry, John Paul, Connie and Lacey. And it would seem that Lacey was running and trying to get out of the house, and it just is terrifying because they must have been really scared in those moments. It also depicts a very frenzied, quick, violent attack. What happens next is really there's a trigger warning for the R word and a child. So if you do not want to hear what happens next, then just skip and I'll put a timestamp on for you. He attacks Lacey in the living room, and while she is unconscious and dying, he carries Lacey upstairs to her mother's bedroom, and he places her onto the bed. This is where he then R-words Lacey while she is dying. At this point, he also strangles Lacey, and I think this is very damning and shows that he definitely could remember and he wasn't completely out of it, because he also placed mirrors on the bed. He propped up a mirror so that he could watch himself do what he was doing to Lacey. The autopsy showed that Lacey was R-worded more than once. It was at least twice. Once when she was unconscious and dying, and then afterwards as well when she had passed away. And when it makes me so angry, because then when we call back to the fact that it was reported that he was a danger to girls and that there was a risk, and that was never then taken seriously, it was not even read about by probation, that then is angering, because it would seem that it was as if he finally got his chance to live out that fantasy. So, I mean, he was he was incredibly dangerous to have around girls, and he would have never been allowed to live with Terry if that had all gone through how it should have gone through. So it's a failing doesn't even seem like, that doesn't even feel enough, does it? It's just when he has murdered everybody in the house and he has R-worded Lacey, he then takes John Paul's Xbox, gets in a taxi, goes to Sheffield and buys cocaine. How can he not be evil, right? On the 21st of December 2022, his time in court came round, and again he said he couldn't remember, blacked out, too many drugs. He said because of that, it was manslaughter and not murder. All right, mate. He also tried to say that he had a brain injury from before, and that is like he was using that as an excuse. He was like, I have got brain damage actually. So, and you know, there have been cases where that happens. There's been cases, I should try and find one actually, that'd be interesting, where people have murdered somebody and they're sleepwalking. Right? So there's all weird, wonderful things, and there are people, there's even been studies into people that have murdered people, and then it's been found that they have a brain tumour, and could that have impacted and stuff like that. It's really complex, isn't it? This was his process. Like, I can't remember it, I was on loads of drugs and I've got a brain injury, I reckon that's why, so I'm not going to plead guilty to murder because I've got brain injury. Then they did loads of tests. They tested his brain function, they tested everything, and there was no brain damage. He was okay. You know what I mean? Not okay, but he didn't have brain damage. I'm really pleased with the sentencing because he was given 5 life sentences, 1 for each victim that he murdered, and also for the horrific R-word of Lacey. He also did take another life, the baby, his own baby, but I still feel like, you know, the 5 life sentences, that's hefty. But also he was given a whole life order. He will never get out, there will be no parole, and he will die in prison. He resides in HMO Wakefield, aka Murder Mansion. We've talked about that place before. It has housed some notorious, really, you know, evil guys. And I find this really frustrating though, because even though he's going to live out the rest of his days in prison, it just feels he's going to end up, he won't be able to be in the main population because he has already, and I can't find anywhere whether the inmate has survived or not, but he, in a workshop at the prison, he beat around the head, bludgeoned another inmate, 4 or 5 blows around the head. And that person, the last that I found was that inmate was fighting for their life. So he went for it. He beat him with a claw hammer. What are you doing giving this guy a claw hammer? Are you serious? Like, are you serious? That's another life that he possibly has taken, or, you know, what? Give him a claw hammer. Frick. That was in May this year. Now, I just, looking back over, and this, again, we've seen this before, when people, they're not being reformed, they're not going to change. This person is incredibly violent, has no moral compass, and he's just going to kill people in prison as well, isn't he? Whether he did that, I mean, he's a child killer and a child R-wordist, and that doesn't go down very well, does it, in prison? So whether it was a message like, don't mess with me, I will kill someone in here, I mean, he's got nothing to lose, has he? He's in for the rest of his life. But then he's now been put, the last I read, again, sorry, because I can't find an update on that. It obviously hasn't. There will be information. I will let you know when I find out, because I'm going to follow it. But he's been put into solitary. But I don't think that there was another person that they had to build the cage for. Do you remember? They had to build this thing, and they have to employ guards, so that there's like 4 guards with him when he goes for a shower, and they've had to build this great big sort of, well, not great big, but this, but it all costs a lot of money. If you have to have extra guards for these incredibly dangerous, like, we know what this guy's done, right? It's not a question. It's not like, oh, is something going to happen to the wrong person? In these cases, when they can't even be in the population, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? In this case, why? Terry's house has been demolished, it's knocked down. Too awful what happened there. And I read that there was going to be a memorial, there probably is at this point now. If anyone is near there, you could let me know in the comments, but there was going to be a memorial placed for the children and for Terry. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? It really is. It is such a Is it though? Is it though? Because when you actually think about his history and his past, and the fact that all of these things, he got away with things, he didn't care about going to prison, he got increasingly more violent, he was never held to account for the domestic violence, that's not in his criminal history, and he just, I think there's that thing where these people they feel invincible. It's yeah. I also think he's a coward. The probation officer, and this is incredibly sad for the probation officer, was a trainee, and they're very stretched as a service. So was her he or she, sorry, the supervision, was she being supervised properly? I'm saying she, I don't know if it's a man or woman. They subsequently left the service. I'm just going to go back over the remaining history of his offending. In June 2021, a member of the National Probation Service team described a curfew requirement for Bendel to live with Miss Harris, Terry, and her children as suitable after not reading the police evidence of sexual risk or harm for girls. In July of 2021, a probation officer's risk assessment of Bendel said that any resumption of alcohol or drugs would increase the risk of serious harm. So that's all right. So he can live with those children then, right? Even though if he has any alcohol or drugs, he's going to cause serious harm. High risk of that, okay. And then in August of 2021, he discloses that he has been smoking and drinking alcohol. Smoking, cannabis. In August, the probation officer contacts Children's Services asking whether a referral is suitable due to the cannabis use, but no referral is ever made. In September of 2021, Bendel was sent a warning after failing to comply with telephone appointments for probation, and then on the 19th of September he's arrested for murder. 3 months before he murdered Terry and her children and Connie, he was fitted for his electronic tag as part of his sentence, and he said when he was fitted with that to the person fitting that if this relationship goes bad, I will kill my girlfriend and her children. He was classed as low to medium risk despite his criminal history, and that was ultimately in the inquest that was one of the hugest failings, because he was not low medium risk, he was high risk. And everything pointed to that, but it was not. That was not. I honestly, it's so. I think it just is. It blows the mind, doesn't it? And the inquest has brought to light, like places where things need to change, but it still blows my mind, and it is just so awful and so horrific because. And I feel it's so incredibly, it's just there's so many places where it's so tragic. Connie, the Lacey's friend who was at the house, who was murdered, she had already slept at the house on the Friday night, and her parents, she wasn't meant to stay Saturday night, and they said, oh, go on then, have another night, because she was so happy, so excited, and doing the cancer research stand with Lacey. They were just having such a nice time, and her parents agreed for her to stay another night. I mean, how, oh my gosh, it's just, they have to, that's just, it's horrific. I can't even fully go there because that's so sad and so tragic. There aren't even words for that. And Jason, the father, so John Paul and Lacey's dad, again, I can't even go there properly because just lost everything. And Terry's mum, she was so, I think that must be really difficult when you have seen how, when your fears come true, because I think this is, I don't suspect that she thought that this would happen, but she's lost her daughter and her grandchildren. Terry was her only daughter. These were her only grandchildren. And she lost everything. She lost everything as well. She lost her family. all of the things that are most precious to you are just gone. And I think it's just, it makes me have all these, like, that I have such strong anger and feelings about this case, and while I think his sentence was, you know, like, I'm glad he has a whole life tariff, it makes me have really strong feelings about it, because he didn't even seem to give a shit, didn't even care. It's just, there's something missing, right? And that's what I mean. What's the point? It's such an angering case. It's so, like, senseless. And also, he's given no motive. There's no motive for the case, for him doing this. I strongly believe that he saw an opportunity to do what he did with Lacey, and that was a huge drive and a huge reason behind what he did. I also wonder whether Terry wasn't able to give him money for drugs, because he took the Xbox to go and buy drugs. So was there no money? Did she run dry? Did she refuse to give him money? Or was there no money? Because if you're living with a drug addict and they are spending your money, that's a lot of money. Sounds like he was taking drugs every day, and he didn't have a job, and he was taking her money to fund his habit. Had the money, was there no money? And that was enough to make him snap. But he's not given a reason. I just wonder that because he took the Xbox to pay for, like, he didn't take her card, he didn't take like, there wasn't cash there, he had to take that to buy his drugs. What but even, I mean, and that in itself, it's like, all of this devastation, if that was the case, because you didn't have any drug money. What? Anyhow, I will keep you up to date if I find out any more information about the inmate. And I mean, it almost seems like crazy, because is he going to go to court again? More money wasted? Because if he has, it's going to be attempted murder, isn't it, if he hasn't killed this inmate? So we're going to do all of that rigmarole. He's got a whole life tariff, like, and that's the thing, isn't it, for somebody like him? What else are you going to do? What else? Like, pff. So that just seems pointless, but not because of justice. If that person, you know, for the family of the inmate, if he has been, who's probably very seriously injured, if not dead. Anyhow, that is all I have on today's case. It's a really complex case with loads of different issues that are, like, people are going to have loads of different opinions on, but I find it really interesting to hear people's opinions, so do put them in the comments below. And yeah, that's all I've got for you on today's case. I haven't got anything to really share with you. We're in the middle of half term, so I am going to, and Paul is making dinner as we speak. He's such a love. I'm very lucky. So I am going to love you and leave you, and I will be back next week with another true crime story in a glass or jar of jug gin. Oh, still on my squeaky chair. I always forget because I'm up the shed. I always come up and get everything set up, and then I'm just like, well, I'm here now. Not that we've got the hugest garden in the world. It's probably 10 steps and I'd be back in the house to get myself a different chair. Being lazy. That's the truth. And I'm really parched. I need to go and, like, down a pint of water, I think. This just isn't doing it. I've been ebbing it out. Again, lazy. Okay. Have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. That was a heavy case. And I'm going to go and, like, meditate and eat a nice meal with my family and do some nice things and fill myself with love. And I hope you do the same. Take care. Be good. Bye.